There's one. Let's wait for the Instagram to catch up. There we go. We got 2 of 3. And here we go. Okay. We are rocking and rolling. Good morning, Pod Squad. I am here with our very special guest, Chef Jason Smith. You may know him from many a Food Network show. He is one of the Food Network stars. He was on Holiday Baking Championships. He judged, oh God, I forgot the name, America's Next Great Baker. They're so similar names. Lots of Food Network shows. And then, of course, my new favorite reality show, The GOAT. He is our GOAT. Jason Smith, welcome to the show.
Well, Lord, honey, it's great to be here.
Oh, it is so nice to have you. I've been missing that, Lord, honey. I binge watched Food Network Star, and it was perfect. I was rooting for you from the beginning. Obviously, a bit of a biased opinion, but you just have it's like you're everybody's best friend, like the best personality. You're so personable and so much fun. So it was really great watch if anybody hasn't seen it yet.
Yeah, it's a Lord, honey, it's a fun show. Let me tell you. Ooh, Lord.
Oh my goodness. What was it like filming that one? We'll go a little Food Network first, and then we'll get into the GOAT.
All right. So the filming of all of the competitions that I've done in the food part of it, of course, is awesome. I mean, the first one that I was on was Holiday Baking Championship. And that one, I had never been on television before. I had never been in a studio before, and I instantly fell in love with it. And so you always have a lot of downtime when you're filming shows. And so I was always that person going, okay, it's hurry up and wait, but let's hurry up because I want to be, let's go. So because I fell in love with it. I mean, I instantly fell in love with the camera. I fell in love with what I was doing. I was getting to showcase things that most people didn't really think about. So I'm a home baker and a home chef or home cook. And so that was something that, a lot of people were like, oh, he's not trained. He's just cooked at home. He's not going to be able to do whatever. So that was something that, I was like, okay, yes, I may be home trained, but guess what? I'm going to show you what this country boy can do. So, but it was a lot of fun getting to know, the cast members, getting to know your camera people, getting to know the producers, getting to know everything that went on behind the set, along with what's going on the set. So it was just a love that I didn't know I had until I was filming those things. And so Best Baker or Holiday Baking Championship took, like 2.5 weeks to shoot the whole season. So, and then I was bitten by the bug. And so once that all aired, and then they said, we want you to do Food Network Star. I'm like, I'm there. Tell me when I need to pack my drawers and let's go. So, of course, that one took 10 weeks to film, and I loved every minute of it.
Yeah.
But filming is just fun. It's fun for me. It's not work. It's not a chore. I love it.
I muted myself because of the dogs, of course. There's always chaos around here. So you were actually asked to be on Food Network Star.
Yeah.
And I assume it's kind of a similar process for the GOAT. Like you get a call and they give you some details. Are there a lot of similarities between those two types of competitions? Because obviously very different shows.
As far as the casting, it kind of goes the same. Now, a lot of the casting, like when I was on Holiday Baking Championship, I sent in my application to be on there. And that was a 6-week process to actually become one of the contestants. But after I'd done that, they actually contacted me, Food Network did, and said, because we had pitched a show concept because I fell in love with it and everybody kind of fell in love with me. And we were like, okay, this is great. This is what I've always wanted to do, was have a show. So we pitched a show to them and they said, we love it, but we really would love for you to be on Food Network Star first. And I said, great, let's do it. So that's how I got to be the one contestant there. Now, once all of that kind of took place, being in the food space of television, now, after that, I have agents and managers and all that. So now it's more like going up for a movie role. So you'll get a call from your manager or agent and say that, hey, they want you to do the show. Here's the premises of the show. Read it over. If it's something you think you might like to do, let's, give it a shot. If not, we'll pass on it and go on to the next thing. So when they called about the goat, and my agent, Dylan Silverstein, called me and said, oh my gosh, they want you to do this show for Amazon. And it's going to be one of their biggest competition shows they've ever done. It's called The Goat. I'm like, well, I'm a farm boy. I know about goats. So he was like, no. It's not that kind of show at all. So I was like, oh, well, what is it? And he's like, you're going to be living in a big house with 13 other people. And you're going to be doing all these kind of like games that doesn't include food. I said, fine, let's do it. I love to compete. I am very competitive spirit, and I love to do games and things like that. And I was like, sure, let's do it. And he's like, are you sure? And I'm like, yeah, I'm sure. Let's do it. So that was just basically a call. And they were like, we need somebody out of the food space. And the producers and stuff of the Goat said, we love Jason's personality. He's great. He's fun.
Yeah.
He's just himself. He's not anything fake. You're going to get what you always see. And so they were like, we've got to have him. And I was like, great, then let's go. So it was very easy to getting on the Goat that time. So
you have a personality I think is made to be on TV. You just have this very memorable, outgoing presence. And I want to see more of it on the Goat. I know the next episode has just come out today. We haven't seen too much of you yet. So is that going to, do you know, or can you say if it's going to change in future episodes?
I can say a little bit.
Okay.
So a lot of that is in the beginning of the show. Of course, the very first episode, I almost get voted off. But my quick wit and my Southern charm and a little bit of tater salad helped me out of that situation. So, but then, you kind of you've seen quite a bit of me in the first episode. And of course, that's kind of hard because when you're first doing an episode with 14 people, they got to get all 14 in there in the first episode to introduce them to America. So, but you've seen a little bit of me up to this point. But I will say, just hold on to your breeches and bras, ladies and gentlemen, because you might just see a lot more of me. So,
good.
But yeah, it's one of those things that it's the way it's cut. So on the Goat, when we're filming the Goat, cameras are on us 24/7. So there's a lot of footage to go through after it's all over with. So, and they want to highlight, the people like in the beginning that, may not be there as long as some of the others. So I kind of understand that. But in the beginning, I was like, okay, I'm just going to be me. I'm going to kind of be in the background just a little bit, taking it all in, because they're all thinking, well, here's a chef that can't do anything. He's just a chef. So he don't know how to play games. He don't know. So I was like, okay, this is cool.
Yeah, you were definitely underestimated. And it was such a great move. Obviously, I watch a lot of reality TV. I've seen people like Davon come up through Big Brother, The Challenge, who are cutthroat strategists and always on the ball. And then in one speech, you completely changed Tayshia's mind, broke that, I'll say loose lines, because I don't think they were really, fully committed to Joey and Tayshia making it to the end together. Yeah. And I don't know how long the speech was fully, but you made such a good point about, to everyone else, Joey would probably be bigger competition, but you're that sleeper competitor who they underestimate. And, you just brilliant strategy. And then I also heard that Tech mentioned yesterday when I spoke with him that you might have used your cooking skills to win over the hearts and minds of your fellow goats. So was that part of your strategy?
It was part of the strategy. It was and it wasn't. Let's put it that way. It was a double-edged sword because I love to cook no matter who's coming to eat, no matter who's in my kitchen or who's around me. I'm going to cook for you. It's just the way it is. But going into this, I'm thinking, okay, I know up front that I'm the only person from the food space. So going into this, I'm like, okay, if I'm the only person from the food space, most of these people aren't going to be able to cook. Most of them probably don't even know how to boil water. And so I'm thinking to myself, okay, if I can keep these people fed because I had a question from one of the producers in my pre-interview that said, if you get a chance to cook, how much will you cook? And I said, girl, you give me a kitchen and a pantry, and I will cook 3 meals a day in between everything else I got to do. And so that was something going into it that they kind of were like, okay, Jason's in this to, he's going to be in the game, but he's going to want to cook something. So they were like, do you care to cook some? And I said, no, absolutely not. And so because we're in this huge mansion, honey, out in the middle of nowhere in Georgia, and there ain't nothing for miles and miles around. And of course, we were there to film a show. So it's not like we could go anywhere and eat. And catering for those are not usually very good. So I was like, okay, I'm going to feed this bunch, and it's going to happen. One of two things is going to happen here, y'all. They're going to get so fat they can't move, and I can beat them at games, or they're going to say, Lord, this is so good, we can't get rid of the chef. Or we'll starve to death. So everybody that you talk to, and they even say it now, Lord, if it hadn't been for Jason, I don't know what in the world we'd done, because he was cooking breakfast. We'd have late night cookies and milk and ice cream. And he was
Oh, you were really going overboard.
Oh, I mean, I was constant. So I would get up before everybody else. It would be me and Joe, grocery store Joe. We were always the first ones up. My room was Wendell, me, Reza, and Justin. You couldn't have got Justin and Reza and Wendell out of the bed with a stick of dynamite, honey. I mean, listen, when they was in the bed, they was in it for the long haul. But, it's one of those things. We had to be up and be ready by a certain time. We have one bathroom the four of us had to use. The other boys across the hall, there was three of them in there, and they had one bathroom. So once Joey went home, that left two of them in that room. So it was Joe and Tech in the other room. Tech's the same way. Honey, you couldn't have got him out of the bed with a crane. And so it was one of those things. Me and Joe was always up and ready to go, so everybody else could get ready. And so I'm like, look, I've got an hour and a half while we're waiting on them to get up and get their cracks cleaned and everything in the world and get the new drawers on. And so I would cook in the morning. So I would do scrambled eggs. Some days I would do scrambled eggs, taters, biscuits, gravy, or hash browns, fresh fruit. And then we had a couple girls in the house that was vegan. So I would fix vegan stuff as well. So they would have
something to do. Oh, that's right. Because CJ
is a full-on vegan. And then Kristen, she tries to eat vegan at most. I mean, there's times she'll eat like chicken and things like that. But and then Pal, she was vegan pretty much. So I had three that I had to cater to as well. And they were like, oh my gosh, how do you know how to cook all this? I'm like, girl, y'all just step back, honey. I can make any vegan fat. They say vegans ain't fat. I can make it fat, let me tell you. But so I would get up in the morning and I would have all this time and I would just cook. And so once they started smelling things cooking, then we started rolling, and people's like, oh, okay, now we know how to get them all out of the bed, put Jason in the kitchen cooking, and they're going to get out of the bed. So it was a strategy, and I constantly cooked. And Jill Zarin can cook somewhat. She can cook a little bit. She's a pretty good cook. She likes to talk more than cook, honey. So there was times I'd say, Jill, honey, you got to hush because I can't even think about cooking. You just stand over there and do what I need you to do. So it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun cooking for them. And I can still tell you to this day what each one of them will eat, what they won't eat, or what they can't eat. So
that is so funny. I mean, it's a great natural talent to have anyway. But to go on a show like that, like you said, you're the only one representing a cooking show. And we saw Jill make the Passover dinner, but not obviously not the same level. And whether you're home-taught,
she was passing over a lot of things. I'm like, girl, I ain't even Jewish, and I know how to cook his dinner. I'm like, girl, honey.
Oh, did she not? We didn't get to see.
Oh, she done. Yeah, you don't really see. So part of that got cut. They filmed me and her in the kitchen cooking this whole Passover dinner. And of course, there was a few of the dishes I had never heard of. So she was telling me what they was. And then I would do different things. So that day she was the cook because that was her thing. And then she's
Right.
like, you know what? We ain't ever going to get this done. You're going to have to take over. So then we just kind of got in there and done it and got it done. And it was great. So.
So they didn't show you essentially having to take over for Jill.
No.
Now, you had a cutthroat game that you guys were playing. Would you say that it was more competitive with the cast of The Goat or the kids that you had to cook and bake with on the Food Network?
Well, actually, that's a tough question because I can tell you the kids that I cook with, honey, some of them can be real cutthroat because they'll be like, oh, you so and so needs cocoa powder. I'm just going to hide the cocoa powder down here under my thing. When they ask, I'm going to say, I don't know where it's at. Not as bad, but I will have to say, for me, the goat is a little bit more cutthroat, but I played a lot into that as well because I'm like, oh, as long as you ain't got my name in your mouth, then I'm all up for it. So, as long as I'm not the one up again for elimination, you need to be a little bit cutthroat. I'll go along with you and we'll feed them cookies, honey, while we're cutting their throats. But, honey, those kids, honey, they listen. Ooh, honey, they can be spiteful, honey. They can just.
Kids can be brutal. They are unfiltered for sure. Oh man, I don't envy parents and I don't envy you having to. One of my favorite jobs was being a camp counselor and I had 11 and 12-year-olds. But looking at that now and then watching your shows, I'm like, oh man, they sure have changed since 20 years ago.
Oh yeah. And I really love working with the kids because these kids that I cook with are so knowledgeable. The thing that I always fathom at is how much they can actually remember. They're not looking at a recipe. They're going out of their memory and how they can remember. But all the while, they're like, oh, you need vanilla? Oh, no, let's just use the whole bottle. And I'm like, oh, honey, you slick. But
yeah,
it's fun. The kids are fun. I love working with the kids.
I will say, I think he's always a kid at heart, the host, Daniel Tosh. So he is hilarious. He is a UCF alum. I also went to University of Central Florida and got to see his stand-up and have always been a fan. Now, he had some really funny one-liners. And one of the things he said when describing you guys was you're putting your strength and lack of life skills to the test to earn the title of GOAT. So besides cooking, what other life skill do you excel at?
Well, poor old Daniel, I love him to death, honey, and he could always say everything in the world. So a lot of life skills that people don't understand, and this is something you'll relate back. Most people don't know about Tosh. Is Tosh and I both, when I lived in Kentucky, of course, I lived on a farm and I raised chickens. Tosh raises chickens. So, and nobody knows that he does that. So, but the one, I have a lot of I wouldn't call them hidden talents, but there's a lot that I can do that most people don't realize. Like, not only can I cook and bake, but, I can crochet, I can paint, I can draw. They're like, is there anything you can't do? And I always tell them, yes, there's a lot that I can't do, but the one thing I can't do is, honey, I ain't never going to be able to work a corner because I'd have to end up paying somebody. So it just ain't going to work. But I have a lot of talents, I guess you want to call them, that people don't know. Now, singing ain't one of them. I used to be a real good singer, honey, but the older I got, I can't sing. So as we all sing, I can't sing anymore. So, but yeah, I mean, there's a lot that I've always loved art. I've always been an artist. As you see here over my head, this is cornflake. And so we have a series of cornflake, and these are all done and they're for sale and all this other stuff. But the girls that actually do this hard art, I got with them, they come to me. And so we kind of come up with him all alone. And of course, I do murals. I do things like that, like my Florida home, which is where I'm at now. I have murals. This leaf here above my head, this whole wall is nothing but a big tropical mural with like birds of paradise and tropical plants. And I just love doing all that alongside the baking and cooking. I can sew, I can make quilts. So there's a whole lot of things that
Wow.
people are like, oh my gosh, I can't believe. As I say, I'm one of those. If I don't know how to do it, I'm going to do it until I know how to do it. So it's that competitive in me. If you tell me I can't do something, I'm going to nail it eventually because I don't like being told I can't do something. So
Yeah, you have a whole I just from a quick research I found, so obviously you have cookbooks, of course, the art, candles, which smell so good, and then vodka too. So you've got so many talents. Which was your favorite to work on?
outside of cooking and baking, my favorite
Mhm.
one of those products to work on for me was I would have to say the candles because it's coming up with those scents that people recognize and it's scents that I want people to say, oh my gosh, that smells just like Jason's lemon blueberry hand pies. So it's not only taking them to a different place or what they remember as food, but relating it to a recipe that I've done or something they've seen me do before. So I love doing the candles. Of course, the cookbooks are my baby, honey. They're my children because that first cookbook took us 10 years to get it done. Well, it took us 10
Oh
years.
my
That's like
goodness.
pitching it and things like that. It took us a year and a half just to get it totally wrote and all the recipes done the way we wanted to. Now, the new cookbook is coming out this September, which is all desserts, and it's called Lord Honey, 8 ingredients or less decadent desserts. And
Oh, that
that
is
book
right up my
actually,
alley.
oh, honey, it's going to be so good. And 8 ingredients or less, so that makes it even better. But it only took us about 6 months to get that book totally done. So the books are my babies. But as far as, and I have fun with those, but the candles were so interesting because there's a lot of candle scents that won't go together. So, like, I love orange and chocolate, but it doesn't work in a candle. I
Mhm.
love pomegranate and sweet tea. It doesn't work in a candle. So it's one of those things you're like, oh my gosh, this works so good when I make it, but in a candle, it smells like cow crap. So it's a fun process.
All right. So first, I want to say before we get into fan questions, Ricky from Love and Reality Pod said hi. I know he's such a big fan as well. And he said, Jason, as much as he could on Instagram without me screaming. So shout out to Love and Reality Pod. And then my mom is also watching. My mom is also home taught. She's going to be recapping the show with us moving forward, and
Oh,
Angelina
awesome.
from Beyond the Final Cut podcast. But my mom has tried to teach me for years to cook. The apple fell far from the tree there. I love to bake. I am just not a good cooker. So, what tip do you have for people who are not good in the kitchen to survive?
The one thing I have to say, and this is what I teach people when I'm on the road teaching cooking and baking and all that stuff, is you got to remember to get down the basic recipes first. And then you can build upon those basic recipes. And trust me, I know if it doesn't work out, don't get discouraged. Throw it out to the chickens because they got to eat too and start over. That's just the way it is. Cooking is probably the easiest simply because you can add a dash of this, a pinch of that. It's just knowing timing and especially if you're doing meat and things like that. Is it better to sear it? Is it better not to sear it? So cooking is one of those that I find is probably the easiest out of the two, but sometimes it's harder to teach cooking because my pinch is different than somebody else's pinch. So,
Mhm.
but just remember, don't get discouraged just because it didn't turn out, because you can simply just keep doing it. Give it to the dogs, give it to the chicken, honey. Slop the hog with it because they got to eat too. Remember. But when it comes to baking, baking is such a science. It's all about measuring. It's all about time. It's all about,
Mhm.
things like that. What goes together, what don't goes together. So baking is one of those, it's more precise. So you are measuring, you are doing all that. So it is easier for some people to bake than it is to cook because cooking,
Yes.
honey, is all over the place. But I have to say, if you've never cooked or baked before in your life, and this is not a sales plug, but it could be, the easiest thing is to get my cookbooks because they are so simple on the rules of, or the directions, which is rules, the directions on how to follow a recipe. You just follow them line by line, and you're going to get that same great result every time. And it's few ingredients. I don't like all that fussy stuff. I don't need 50 ingredients to make a dish taste good. I just need 8,
Yeah.
10, 12 ingredients. I'm good to go. And so that's what I tell people. I'm like, if you want something good, buy the book, because that's a good place to start, and then go beyond there. Or buy any cooking book that's a cook 101 or a baking 101. But I will have to say, the books that I write are so easy to follow. And I wanted to give those to people simply because that's the way I started out. My grandmother taught me. So it was a handful of this, or I would look at her and say, okay, her hand is not as big as mine, but this is what she's got in her hand. So I would have to mimic that to learn those recipes.
Okay.
And I thought, okay, when I get old enough to teach people, I want to do it easier because I learned it the hard way. So that's my whole takeaway. If you're learning to bake and cook, the easiest thing is to follow my recipes along, because they're probably the easiest to learn from.
I was hoping I saw you did a virtual experience for Mother's Day where you could order a kit with all the ingredients and everything. And then you did kind of a cooking class with people online. I wish I would have seen that before it happened, because that would have been so fun. Are you going to do another one of those?
Yes. So we have more of those virtual experiences coming up. That was the very first one that company had ever done. I've worked with them for a long time. And we usually do like corporate offices like Amazon, like Citibank, or, all those big, huge companies. And it was all corporate. Well, I was like, people are asking when they're seeing me do this, how can we do it? We're just we're at home. And so I brought that to them and said, look, guys, I've got people that's wanting to do this. It's not in the corporate world. What can we do? So they developed this, and we done it. It was a great hit. It was a full class. Or full experience, sorry, as we call it, experience. I can't get over that. But it was great. Just be on the lookout for more of those, because we're going to be doing more of those, because it is a lot of fun. And we're doing mostly recipes that come from the cookbook. So that just, it's easy. You get to follow along. We have a great time, honey. It's all the joys and lives and jokes and all that good stuff. And we just have the best time. So always be looking for that.
Yes. And it's on your website, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to definitely do it, because it came with the cookbook and a signed apron too, if you got that package. And my mom and I did a virtual class once, and it was pasta making, and we had to go out and get all the ingredients and then set everything up. And pasta making, not a good place to start.
We don't do that. When you sign up to take one of my virtual classes, we ship you the box with everything you need to do that experience. You don't have to buy nothing else. Now, I may have to ask you to get some water out of the sink, but as far as any ingredients, you don't have to shop for anything. And that's what I tell people. They're like, oh my gosh, I enjoy shopping, but I don't have time, and I want to do this, but I don't have time. I'm like, you don't have to. We're shipping right to your door. You just open the box and we start. I mean, that's it. You don't have to get anything. So that's one thing I love with this company, and we're the only company that actually do that. So, and yes, some people go, oh, well, the first tier is this price, but why is it this price? And we're like, well, we're shipping everything to you, plus you're getting that. And they're, oh, I thought we had to do the shopping too. Now I understand. I'm like, yeah. So yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, everything
really awesome. Yeah.
We had done during COVID, we did some of the Airbnb virtual experiences. So yeah, it was a pain. And then we didn't have, like the pasta making machine, a lot going on there. But anyway, you had mentioned your granny, and I know that she's very prominent in your cooking growing up, a big influence for you. What do you think she would think of the goat?
Well, I'm just going to say my grandmother would probably not like the goat. My grandmother was very Southern Baptist, and honey, she just don't like 4-letter words. Let's just put it that way. So, and they throw in a lot of those around. So I think she would be proud of me being on that show, just doing everything I've done. She would be super proud, but she'd be like watching it with sound turn off, because she'd be like, oh Lord, honey, she'd be clutching her pearls. she'd be like, Lord, I can't believe that girl just said that. So, I mean, she would be like, oh, I don't know about all this, but she would be super proud. But let's just say she'd be clutching her pearls because she's from really, really old school. So,
I totally get it. It's tough watch. I mean, we used to talk about dating on this show, and we would talk about dating. And my mom tunes in, my aunts and uncles tune in. So maybe, she wouldn't want to watch those episodes, but she'd still be supportive, I like to think.
oh, yeah.
And we had a lot of questions as well. We'll get into the fan stuff now about growing up in the
Okay.
country and in a small town. So we're going to shift on over to those fan questions as promised. And if you have questions, you can still submit them on Instagram, YouTube, or our Facebook Live. They will pop right up on screen for us. And we are going to start with an Instagram question. And the background of this one is Whitley Davidson. They live in Campbell County, Tennessee now. Her husband is from Manchester, Kentucky, and mother-in-law lives in Burning Springs. And Cassie from The Circle was on previously, also from a small town in Kentucky.
Yeah.
And so this question was for both of you. It was, how do you think living in a small town prepared you to do a competition show?
Well, I know exactly where Manchester is because I was raised in Laurel County, Kentucky, or London, Kentucky, and that is in the county right next to Manchester, which is Clay County. And I know where Burning Springs and all that is too. So how did living in a small town prepare me for competition? The one thing I would have to say, being raised in a small town, you never see a stranger. You never meet a stranger. So you're more comfortable with yourself in talking to people that you don't know. And so it becomes one of those things that everybody becomes your friends because being from a small town, we know each other. We are all friends. We do stuff for each other. And being raised in a southern small town makes it even better because as Southerners, honey, we say howdy, hello to everybody. And, it's one of those things that if you do something we don't like, we have that Southern way of cutting you off real quick, but you don't realize it if you're not from the South. So Mia saying, Lord, honey, bless your heart can mean so many different things. And people that doesn't come from the South don't realize that. So I think living in a small town prepared me so much for being in competition. One, always, it's just having that great personality that we have in small towns, never seeing a stranger, knowing how to use bless your heart, and also just the competitiveness of it. Because being in a small town, when you're in school and you're in like sports or whatever, you are more competitive because it is a smaller town. So you have that competitive nature. Now, one thing in a small town, we know when to turn on the competitive and when to turn it off. Now, that is something everybody needs to know during competition. And so I think that comes from living in a small town. It's just one of those things that's born and bred in us. So, but yeah, being in a small town really helps. Large city, I've competed with people in a large city. They just don't have that little extra that everybody needs to have like us Southerners have. So
was that a hard adjustment for you to have to go into these big cities and like an LA kind of environment? Because it's so different. I lived in a small town for many years. I lived on a farm. I had horses and got used to saying hi to everybody. And then people who come out from New York, friends, family, when I just say hi in passing, what are you doing? Don't look at them. Don't make eye contact. Why are you acknowledging them? And it's so second nature to me now to just be friendly and, that's kind of way. And that is not normal in bigger cities. So was that an adjustment kind of going into that Hollywood world from Kentucky?
I didn't. I stayed true to myself and I treated every city I've ever been in, Hollywood, LA, Venice, New York, Atlanta, even, Dallas, Denver, just about any big city I've ever been in that they're like, okay, you're going to this city and they're pretty snotty. I'm like, honey, I'm from the South. When I get done walking down the street, ain't nobody snotty. So, I say hi and hello just the same as anything. And it's a shock to people because they're not used to it. And you see their whole mood change. They're walking down the street. And then you say hi and they're like, Well, hello. So it's because they're not used to that. I have just made somebody's day without them realizing what just happened.
Yeah.
So, I'll probably never see them again in my life. They may see me, but I won't see them. But, it's one of those things. So it didn't matter where I come from. I was not going to change who I
Good.
was just because I was going into a bigger city. So even if I'm walking down the streets of Hollywood, I'm always saying hi and hello. I mean, it just is what it is. So I'm like, hey, let's go home, make biscuits. Come on. I don't know who you are, but let's go.
I think for some people it is disarming. I'm kind of the same way. I'll compliment somebody if I like their shoes, their purse, whatever, just out in passing. And I like to treat you guys, like online, chatting with reality stars like we've known
Yeah.
each other forever. And I think that does scare some people away. But you're right. You have to stay true to who you are and that personality, because not everybody's going to like you anyway. So you might as well just be who you are.
Right. And it's one of those things that makes them comfortable once you do say, hello, how are you? And give them a smile. And some people I won't even say something to. I just smile because most people don't smile. But, it just makes people comfortable, and it takes that guard away from them that, oh, everybody's mean and nobody's going to talk, and I don't want to talk to nobody. But once you say something, that guard is immediately gone. I don't know how many people I've walked down the street and said hello to or whatever, and then all of a sudden they start, striking up a conversation. I'm like, listen, I just said hello. I'm glad you're having a good day. I'm in a little bit of a rush. It's good to meet you. Have a wonderful day. If you need to get something off your chest, there's a beauty shop down the road, honey. That's a good place to do that at. So,
how do you prefer if fans recognize you that they interact?
I want fans to come when they recognize me. I want them to come straight to me and say, oh my gosh, I've seen you on television. It's great to meet you. Can we take a selfie? Will you sign this piece of paper for me? That's what I prefer, fans to actually come straight to me. Honey, some days it takes me 3 hours to go to the grocery store and get a gallon of milk. I mean, that's just what it is. But I love it. Because without my fans, without the people out there, and without you all that's watching today, without you, I wouldn't be where I'm at, because that's why I'm where I'm at, is because of y'all. So it's one of those things. When you see me in public, I want you to come up to me. There's been several times I've had people follow me around the store and won't say anything. And I'm like, I know.
Yeah.
That you can just tell when it's like one of those things, you can feel it. And I'm like, now look here, I know you ain't using them tampons, honey, because all you got in that card is tampons and cereal, and you've been following around just throwing stuff up in your car, up in your grocery cart. So just come on over here and let's talk and get it over with. And they're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're talking to me. I'm like, hey, look, it's part of it. I love meeting my fans. So just come straight up to me. Now, don't run at me. Now, I'll be going, oh, honey, this is going to tackle me. Just start hollering, Lord, honey, I've always wanted to meet you. And then I'll be like, oh, okay. Sound good to me.
I can say, as a fan, and as I don't run into celebrities often, especially not in the area I live in. I went to New York over the holidays, and I had lunch, and I forget the name of the restaurant, but Tom Colicchio was eating behind us. And you never know how people want to be approached. So I just left him alone. We did take a picture with him in the background, and I'm sure he knew. But it's nice to know that you're approachable, and not that I would think anything else of you, but people just don't know. They don't know.
Right.
They don't want to interrupt. They don't want to, but it's kind of disruptive to your day.
People will say that if I'm eating and they come up to me in a restaurant and they go, I don't want to interrupt you, but I loved watching you on TV. I just wanted to tell you that. I'm like, girl, get your camera out, and jump up and take pictures. And they're like, really? I'm like, yeah. And I had the same experience one time when I was filming Holiday Baking on my last day of filming, after I knew I had won. So I was the last one there because I had to do exit interviews. And that night I went to a Mexican restaurant to have dinner, and I sat down and I looked to my right, and Jay Leno was sitting next to me. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's Jay Leno. He was just in Kentucky. that was during that time that we had a police officer that had been killed. Nobody knew who had killed him. And he had just been there raising money for this family. And Jay Leno is one of those people. He loves when people talk to him. So I just looked over at him and said, hey, it's so nice to meet you. I won't bother you while you're eating, but I just wanted you to know, thank you for doing what you did in Kentucky for this police officer family. I'm from Kentucky. And he was like, what? And so he struck up the conversation. Needless to say, we sat there. He pushed his table next to mine, and it was him and his wife and me. We sat there for 3 hours and had the best evening. And ever since then, Jay Leno has been a super fan of Lord Honey, and he follows everything I do. I've been invited to his home when I'm in LA to see all of his cars. He is just a wonderful person. And so, you know, you don't know until you approach somebody, but just say, excuse me, I would, you're my favorite, or I'd like to tell you I watched you on so-and-so. I'm going to say, come on, girls and boys, let's take pictures. I just love it. I love giving back to the fans, because without the fans, I wouldn't be where I'm at.
I love that. Now, I'm going to try and get through this without stuttering, but this is a fan question from Reddit, from Zealous Ideal Set 6132. Said, Bush's Baked Beans has a factory in Kentucky and has a recipe for a pinto bean pie. Was that the inspiration for your bean can pie?
No, it's not. Yes, Bush's is in Kentucky, but if you look at the recipe, they're similar, but they're not. My recipe for a bean pie came from my aunt, which was my mom's oldest sister. She used to make these a lot when I was growing up, because pecans sometimes got expensive. Of course, they're not as expensive back then as they are now, but in that time, they were expensive. And so she actually came up with a bean pie recipe, and she used it all the time. And if you make it right, and it's in my it's in my first or second book. I can't remember. It's in the second book. It's in the all dessert book coming out. But if you make it properly and follow the recipe, you can't tell it's beans. It tastes just like pecan pie. And so I didn't even know Bush's had one until recently. But that recipe came from my aunt. I've changed it a little bit just to make it a little bit, a little bit better, a little bit more. But it's really a good pie. But yes, so Bush's one is similar but different. So it's like, is it really as good as this one? So try them both and see what you think. Which my recipe for the bean pie comes out in September in the new dessert book. So you're on mute.
I just like that you can see my facial expressions and have no clue what I'm saying.
I'm like, that's something else I can't do. I can't read lips. So.
Oh, man. I wish I could sign. I signed up for classes and then I never started signing. I have done brownies with black beans and with avocado, and they weren't bad. So I will definitely try that pie. And then there was a lot of controversy about seasons of the Food Network Star, where maybe the judges were kind of favoring a contestant or had somebody that they were egging on to win. So from, oh God, I'm going to butcher this one, Yocanahan 5781 on Reddit. Do you think being a Food Network star is more about the food or the memorable personality?
Truthfully, it's about all of it. So you've got to have a personality. It's got to be memorable. You've got to have a good cooking chops or baking chops, either one. And you've got to have great camera presence. So there is times it looks like they're favoring one person over another because maybe they're charming or they're funny personality. And, their cooking sometimes may not be what you think it should be, but it all plays together. Judging shows, judging cooking and baking shows, I'm one of those. You could have the worst pie ever, but have the best personality. I'm going to give you a slide the first time, but the second time, if you can't bake or cook, Then we start looking at, okay, yes, they're great personality, but maybe the first time was a fluke. We all have bad days. But the second time, it's just as bad as the first, then something's not right. Love your personality, but you're not a good cook or baker. So for me, it's the whole package. You got to have the whole package. And I think that's one thing that Giada and Bobby Flay, which are still great friends of mine, they always said that to me. Not only are you a pretty face, I'm like, listen, girl, I ain't that pretty. But not only are you a recognizable face, you have these great sayings, you captivate people, but your recipes are to die for. And you know what food flavors go together. So you are the whole package. And through Food Network Star, I heard that a lot from them. Sometimes it was shown, sometimes it was cut, but they were always saying, you are the full package. You're what we're looking for. But there was three of us like that. There was three that had great personalities and could cook. And so it made my season was very hard for them because any three of us that was in the finale could have won that show. And so my whole thing is I had to be even more sometimes than what the others did because I'm Southern. So on camera, we're so laid back when we talk in the South. On camera, it comes off as we don't care, or it comes off as we're not as happy, or we're slow. So I had to be 10 times of what I really normally would be to make the camera play to what really was me. And I know that's hard. That's hard for a lot of people that's never been on camera to kind of comprehend that. But I'm the same on camera as you see me in person. So I've always got that 10 times more. And that was one thing Bobby said to me right out of the gate. Southerners are usually don't come across good on camera. You do. So you are being true to yourself. So that's one of those things. You got to be the full package. You got to be the full package. Yes, memorable is a great thing, but you got to know how to cook too, honey.
Did you feel when you were judging yourself like it was hard not to be, maybe not externally, but like in your head rooting on a certain person or a favorite that you had and not be biased?
I would have to say in cooking competitions, no. I ain't got time to root for nobody else because I'm thinking about what I need to do. As far as the GOAT, there was a few people that came into the GOAT that I knew just watching them on TV, like Grocery Store Joe, Wendell from Survivor, Reza from Shaw's of Sunset, and Jill Zarin from Housewives of New York, and Justin from RuPaul's Drag Race. So I was kind of that fan kind of like come over me when I see them come in, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I can't believe I'm in this house with these people. What's going on? And so there was times I'd go, oh my gosh, I hope that he or she does good today. I'd really like to, they've been having a bad day. I'd like to see them, whatever. But you still are in it for your own self. So you can't do too much of that, but you do some of it. And I'm one of those, I'm going to raise you up when you need to be raised up. But if you need to be knocked down, I'm going to knock you down. So, so it's one of those things. I can do either one. But inside, there was times I was like, oh my gosh, I hope Wendell wins this because me and Wendell's on a team together. I mean, we're together. So I was like, oh my gosh, Wendell's got to win this one. Wendell's got to win this. And then, there's me and Wendell's been on teams up to this point. We've been on the same team. So me and Wendell will be like, okay, we got each other. We got to get the rest of our team. We've got to win this. We got to be safe. So it was one of those things. We worked really close together. And there were several of us that done that. Myself and Wendell. Me and Dave Vaughn worked together on some of it. I mean, like when she threw the competition a couple weeks ago, I had no idea she was doing that, and I didn't care for it. I thought it's an easy way out, is what I thought.
Sure.
And I felt like that she was doing it because it was personal reasons. It wasn't about the game. So, and I've expressed that to her since then. We've all stayed friends on the GOAT. We're all still friends. We have a GOAT chain that we text on. And so it's one of those things that we've worked out all of our problems if we all had any, and we're all good to go. But yeah, that's sometimes I'm going to root for you, but I still can cut you at the same time, honey. Remember, I'm Southern, so
You can bless their hearts all day long if you need
I
to.
can bless their hearts all day long, and they never know what's coming at them.
If you aren't the winner of the GOAT, because we don't know yet who wins, who do you think should win? And that one is from Ava Orn on Reddit.
Oh, Lord, honey. So if I had to choose, of course, I would take myself out of this question, but
Right.
because, of course, I want to win. But if I had to choose somebody else to win, there's so many of them that has played such a good game up to this point. I mean, we're only 5 episodes in, so
Mm-hmm.
out of the ones that are left after the 5th episode, I would have to say I'm okay if Wendell wins. I'm okay
Okay.
if Joe wins, and I would be okay if Reza won, and probably Davon. So anybody besides me, those 4 would be probably my top picks. One of those, but really, I want to win. So
Of course you want to
get
win.
out of
That's
the
what
way
we
is all I
say.
gotta say.
It's tough because I've gone into these shows. I know probably about half the cast from other shows, half you're just learning for the first time. I don't watch the Bravo shows for the most part. And like House of Villains, I don't know if you've seen that, but everybody really starts to win you over, even if it was somebody you didn't like on their season of their show. You really start to root for them and see them in a different light because it's just such a different environment.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do you think that reality TV has changed a lot from your beginnings on Holiday Baking Championship all the way up till the GOAT now?
Cooking competition wise, it hasn't changed that much. There's a few new things they're doing in cooking and baking competitions. It's neat. I feel like reality shows in general are getting better and better. I can remember when the first reality show I ever seen was The Real World on MTV when that first came out.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so like slapstick. You could tell it wasn't, it wasn't, it was all a setup, to where now you're seeing better competition. You're seeing people
Mm-hmm.
actually putting themselves there. They're actually doing stuff that's really happening. So competition wise, reality shows are getting better and better as we go, from what they were in the yesteryear.
Now we'll do one last fan question because we are running low on time, and then we're going to play a game, and I'm going to give you a little spirit animal reading. So our last fan question of the day is, what other reality show would you like to be a part of? And that is from Lemmy Love on Reddit.
Lord, honey, let me tell you, just everybody pull up a chair and get out a glass of bourbon and let's go through this. I would love to do Survivor. I wish they would call tomorrow. I'd love to do Survivor.
Really?
I would love to do Big Brother. Probably Big Brother is the last one I would do, but I would think about it. But
Okay.
Survivor is one I've always wanted to do.
Really?
Yes, and The Amazing Race. I could eat that up, honey. Listen, I love The Amazing Race. I'd love it. I wish they'd call me tomorrow and say, "Hey, we want you on the next season of Amazing Race." Of course, any cooking competition, baking competition, I'm up for it. But it's outside of the booking or the cooking and the baking. Bring me to Survivor. Bring me to Amazing Race. I would love to do the Traders.
Yes, I was going to say, would you do Traders?
Yes, I would do Traders in a heartbeat. So my top 3 right now is, if they call me for Traders, Survivor, and The Amazing Race, I would say yes right off the bat.
Oh my goodness.
Big Brother, maybe. The thing that might get me with Big Brother is you live in that house for 100 and some days.
Yeah, it's a
And
long time.
That's a little bit long for me. But I mean, I'm good because it took it, in reality shows, it takes a good 10 to 12 weeks to film a reality show. So I'm good for a couple, 3 months. It could be international, it could be national. I'll do them all. But when you start talking half a year to do something and you're stuck there for a half a year,
Uh-huh.
I'm going to cook for you. So bring it on down. I'm going to cook for you and see how long we can stay. But yeah, Survivor, Traders, and Amazing Race. Call me tomorrow. So yeah.
You put it out there, so I'm sure your phone's going to be ringing soon, because I don't know. Yes, Big Brother is a long time to film, but I think I'd rather do like 6 years of Big Brother than 6 days of Survivor. I mean, that
Oh,
just looks
no.
brutal.
No, girl, honey, give me a beach and a palm leaf, and I can cook you a 6-course meal with what I can find. I just,
All right,
I'm an
maybe if you're
outdoorsy.
there, I'll go.
Yeah, I'm an outdoorsy person. I love being outside. I mean, that's just the way I was raised. But give me an ocean, give me a beach. I can fish. I love to fish. I can make a house. I can build things. So, I mean, I'm pretty sure I could do Survivor.
Do you horseback ride?
I do. Yes.
I'm like a Long Island country girl, so I like to ride. I don't mind being at the farm and being down and dirty, but I've also grown up riding English, if anybody's familiar with that. So it's a little bit
Yeah.
prissier. And so I don't think I could make the cut on Survivor because I can get down and dirty for a little bit, but I want to sleep in a bed at the end of the day. I just don't think I could handle it. But I don't know anybody's Survivor, but I'm gonna find somebody and make a call for you. I want to see
Sounds
that.
great to me.
All right. Now we have a choice of 4 games. I'm going to let you
Okay.
pick. We have icebreakers, which is kind of like awkward first date questions. We have pick a partner, which is where you would pick somebody from one of your shows to do strange scenarios with, like live on the space station or go to the bottom of the ocean. Never have I ever and would you rather, which I think are both self-explanatory. So Jason, pick a game.
I think icebreakers. I think that sounds like fun.
Icebreakers. All right. So
I've
we
done all
are
the other
going
ones,
to
though.
icebreakers. And we're going to put you right there if I can. Stupid screen. It doesn't want to cooperate. Let's see. There we go. Okay. If you could switch lives with someone for a day, who would it be and why?
Oh gosh, do they have to be dead or alive?
Well, they can be dead, but let's say they're not dead if we're switching lives with them.
Okay. So if I could switch lives for somebody for one day, I would have to say I would love to switch lives with Elvis Presley for one day.
All right.
Simply because I always loved to sing when I was younger and I can't now, but he has always been kind of an influence in the music world for me. So I would say Elvis.
Have you been to Graceland?
I have several times.
I haven't been yet, but my mom was a big Elvis fan. I want to go. I'm not big on country. I mean, not that he's a country artist, but
Right.
like there, Dollywood, I feel like you just have to see those kinds of places.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
What superpower would you choose?
Oh, if I could choose a superpower, I think it would be, well, I mean, I have a superpower now that's feeding people, but if I could choose a superpower, I think it would be to fly because I love
Okay.
to fly, but I would like to fly without being in a plane, and I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
go. Yeah,
All
I
right.
could just fly to where I needed to go. And yeah.
How about what's at the top of your bucket list?
Being on Survivor.
Fair enough. What TV show or movie would you want to be your real life?
Oh, want to be my real life? What movie or
Mhm.
TV show would I want to be my real life every day if I had to live it? I
Mhm.
would have to say, oh my gosh, TV show. Oh, of course, honey. Still Magnolias. I mean, one of my favorite
Oh,
movies. Yes, I can see myself being Droopy, honey. I can fix your hair because I'm a licensed cosmetologist too, honey. Listen,
are you really?
I am, girl. I'm a cosmetologist, a nail tech. There ain't much I ain't done. Trust me.
I was going to say, what can't you do?
Not much.
What does the last text you got say?
Oh gosh, the last text I got said, I'm going to get, it's from one of my friends. And she just sent it a few minutes ago. I'm going to get my nails done. I'll be done at 1:30. Let's go eat lunch.
Speaking of eating lunch, what would your last meal be?
Oh, honey, this is easy. So my last meal would be chicken and dumplings, shuck beans. For those that don't know what shuck beans is, it's green beans that's dried and then they're rehydrated and cooked. So it'd be chicken and dumplings, shuck beans, candied sweet taters, honey, cucumbers, and cornbread.
Oh my goodness, that is very specific. And then finally, what would your go-to karaoke song be?
Oh, my go-to karaoke song is actually, and I do it is, oh gosh, I knew you was going to ask this. So it's Harper Valley PTA. So my friends and I, when we go do karaoke, I always pick Harper Valley PTA because I can't sing, but for some reason I can do that song. So,
All right. Oh, this is one. It's not on the list, but I'm going to ask you anyway. You're hosting a dinner party and you are not going to be the one to cook. You just do not have time. Who are you having cook for the party?
oh gosh, okay, I'm hosting, but I'm not cooking. I would have to say my very good friend David Rose, that was with me on Food Network Star. I would bring him to do the cooking.
All right. I like it. Now, last but not least, we tap a little bit of astrology here, whether you believe in it or not. It's always fun. So pick a number from 1 to 54.
16.
16. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Your card is the Ant of Perseverance.
Oh.
It's always hard when I have the virtual background. So I'm going to read this to you, and then you tell me if you think it applies to your life at all or if it's just a bunch of BS.
Okay.
This is a message of patience. Whatever is going on right now, you cannot be so impetuous. By pacing yourself, the end result will be far more rewarding. Slow down, don't rush, work carefully, and learn to accept help from others.
That's kind of the way I roll pretty much anyway. I mean, there's times I have problem asking other people to help because I'm one of those, I want to help everybody, but
Sure.
that's pretty much me. I mean, yeah.
All right. So accurate. Now, Jason, thank you again so much for joining us. Please tell us where we can follow you and whatever you'd like to promote.
Well, Lord, honey, I've had an awesome time. I was so glad you reached out to me. So you can follow me on Instagram at official_Chef Jason Smith, on Facebook at Chef Jason Smith. Lord, honey. My website is southerncountryBling.com, it's up. There's a few new things fixing to go on there. We change it quite often. And also don't forget, you can buy my book, my merchandise, my candles, the art line, all of that right off of the website. There's buttons there. You click, it takes you to pages. You order it and it sends it right to you. And be looking for my newest book coming out this September. So, and then also don't forget to watch The GOAT every Thursday on Amazon.
Yes.
Amazon Freebie, and be on the lookout because I got some cooking shows coming. So you got to follow me to get all the updates. Because listen, following all of this, honey, is a life in its own. Listen, you're going to laugh every day. So make sure you follow along.
It's absolutely true. I've become a big fan since I saw The GOAT premiering. I've caught up on your shows, and yes, absolutely worth a follow. So thank you again, Jason. You can follow us, rate, review, subscribe, and do all of the things at the Love Pod Podcast. We will see you guys next time. We love you and have a great day.